Do you want to start building some amazing new commander decks around all of these lovely new Bloomburrow commanders that we've just received? What's that? You do, but you don't know where to start? Well, I've put together a list of the 5 most popular commanders from Bloomburrow according to EDHREC, the stats on there, not including the 4 cards from the precon, and we are going to break down each one of these today. I'll be going through art, playstyle, unique mechanics, and just my personal thoughts on these cards. By the end of the video, you should have a good understanding of which of these 5 Bloomburrow commanders suit you best, so you can get a little head start when starting to build your next commander deck. So without further ado, let's get into breaking down these cards. The first card we're going to be looking at is Baylen the Haymaker. So Baylen is a free cost card. It's a red, green, white card. So it's a free color commander, a legendary creature, rabbit warrior. And it's got 3 different abilities. First ability, tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana. Second, tap 3 untapped tokens, you draw a card. Tap 4 untapped tokens, put 3 1/1 counters on Baylen, and it gains trample until the end of the turn. So basically, this card likes tokens. That is all really as complex as Baylen gets, right? It's doing 2 main things. It wants tokens. It's not making tokens. It wants you to have tokens, and it wants to take advantage of tap untap abilities. So before we get into Baylen too much, let's look at the art. He's a rabbit. We can clearly see that. He's got a nice little helmet and some armor on made for some leaves. He's got a big old scythe, which seems to be the barb comes from some sort of insect. Wait a minute. This isn't an insect. This looks like almost a vegetable. Maybe it's like a wonky chili or a carrot or something. It's welded to a stick, or if that is part of the stem. Other than that, we can see he's in some fields. He's got some rabbit allies behind him, so he looks like he's leading them into battle. Dark, reddish, pinkish sky in the background to complement Baylen's art in his outfit. So yeah, that's it for the art. Looks pretty cool. So, the card. What are you doing if you build Baylen? So, as I said, you are trying to make lots and lots of tokens. That's what Baylen wants, okay? Because tokens is going to allow you to abuse his abilities the more that you have, okay? Now, these don't have to be creature tokens. They can be any tokens. So, we're talking treasure, we're talking food, we're talking blood, clues, whatever it is, you're just making tokens as well as creature tokens. Now, we already know that rabbits like to create lots of little baby rabbits from the Bloomburrow set, so obviously any of those cards are going to be really complementary for Baylen. So this card is going to basically work in any deck that is producing lots of tokens. That's the gist of it. Now, the way we abuse this even more is if we have different ways to untap our tokens so that we can continue to abuse Baylen's abilities. It's quite well designed because it's like in order of when you would want it in the game. So early on the game, tapping 2 tokens, you're going to have fewer tokens, and you're going to need ramp at the start of the game. So it's very conveniently placed as that first ability for only 2 tokens. Then we move on into the mid game. Maybe our deck starts running out of steam and we need some card draw to keep up. Well, that's when we can tap 3 tokens to draw a card. And then later on, when we want to finish off our opponents, that's when we can tap 4 to start buffing up Baylen, get him nice and big, give him trample, and then just one-shot one of our opponents. So yeah, it's kind of looking like this deck's whole strategy is going to be about basically building as much card advantage with Baylen's first 2 abilities, and then just going ham and buffing Baylen up and just making him that one single big scary card to just swing. That's really all I've got to say about Baylen. He seems quite cool. Flubs the Fool is another free cost commander. He is a green, blue, red, so another free color. He's a frog scout. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card if you have no cards in your hand. Otherwise, you have to discard a card. Okay, right. That's pretty crazy. We're going to get into that in a minute. First, let's look at the art. Flubs, as we've already established, he's a frog. He has a very strange get-up here. I mean, it looks like he's wearing a dress. So, is Flubs a woman? Who knows? His clothes look a bit ragged. He's got a weird little feather thing coming out of, I'm going to assume, is a hat that he's got on here. He's holding a little stick with a little satchel on the back, kind of like what you see like little homeless people wear in old cartoons and stuff. He's also holding a really big flower. He's standing on the edge of a cliff. He's not really adverse to danger. There's a little insect friend that he's got here. So he's looking like quite an eccentric fellow. I will say as well, the art here, it looks like a painting. Like maybe that's to symbolize he was like some sort of legend. So enough about Flubs the Fool's artwork. What does this card do? It's very wacky. It looks like it would be a lot of fun. However, probably quite difficult to build a deck around. Probably not the most ideal commander to build around if this is your first time building one, unless you don't really care about function and you just want to have some fun. So why is that? Well, essentially, you're having to put yourself in a disadvantageous position to start getting the benefit of this card, because essentially you want to dump your hand as quickly as you can, because it's allowing you to play additional lands, right? So that's going to get you ahead first. And then whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw cards if you have no cards in your hand. It wants you to have no cards in your hand. Otherwise, discard a card. So whenever you play or cast a spell, you are discarding cards. So it's hurting you in a way until you get to that no cards thing. Very, very strange, but that's why people are going crazy, because it leans into the chaos, right? It wants you to have no cards in your hand so that you can just be playing constantly off the top of your deck. Some cards that people are using for Flubs the Fool decks are cards that want you to continue to play an additional land to help you dump your hand quicker. Cards that allow you to play cards that aren't from your hand. So you're dumping your hand, which is fine because you can rather play cards from your graveyard, from exile, whatever it is. So you're not getting hurt as much by discarding your hand. It can go many different ways. There's loads of different ways you can build this. So if you're quite an advanced deck builder, then this card is probably going to be a lot of fun for you to really twiddle and tweak. Or if you just want something chaotic and crazy, then Flubs is going to be a great choice for you. He's also an 05. We didn't mention that, so he's quite hard to kill, but he's also not going to be doing anything in terms of damage. So yeah, he's just there vibing. Next we have Ygra. Now I've gone into Ygra in quite a bit of detail in one of my videos on building your very first commander deck. So if you haven't already checked that out and want to get a more detailed information on how you would build an Ygra deck with some examples and all that fun stuff, then go check out that video. So Ygra Eater of All is a 5-cost card. Free colorless, 1 black, 1 green. So more expensive. It's a legendary creature elemental cat. So we know this is a calamity beast because all the calamity beasts are elemental creatures from Bloomburrow. It has ward, sacrifice of food, which seems pretty strange until we get into what the card actually does. Then it makes sense. Other creatures are food artifacts in addition to their other types. So essentially, if you want to target this, you're going to have to sacrifice a creature unless they have food for some other reason. Whenever a food is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 1/1 counters on Ygra. Ygra is going to get more powerful as creatures die. That's your creatures, that's your opponent's creatures, whatever it is. This kind of deck wants you to just power up Ygra, make Ygra as scary as possible, and then just, you know, one-shot people, essentially, or just scare them enough to kill them with a shitload of damage. So Ygra works very well with cards that care about when other creatures die, because you can always have the access to sacrifice your creatures, as they're all foods, and they have the ability of food, so you can pay 2 to sacrifice them and gain free life. So if you do that, you're going to be buffing Ygra and then any other cards that trigger whenever creatures die. Cards that allow you to sack your creatures are really good, because through playtesting, I found that always needing that 2 mana to sack the creature can be a little bit jarring, especially at the start of the game. So if you have cheaper ways to sacrifice creatures, or ways that are free just through costs of a card, then that can be really good for Ygra, because not only are you sacking them for that card's effect, but you're also sacking them for Ygra's effect to power it up. So that's really, really nice. Ygra loves cards that care about food as well, because you're always going to have food as long as you have creatures. So that's another really nice one. So let's look at Ygra's art now. Wow. Look at this giant calamity beast. She looks like a panther or something. I don't know what she is, but she looks terrifying. You can see rabbits and mice. They are running for their life as Ygra is just chowing down on all of their friends and family. It's quite a terrifying sight. She's also got a glowing light emitting from her eyes and her mouth, which is very, very cool. She's a 6/6 as well, so she's coming out as quite a big body. Other than that, that's all there really is to say about Ygra. She is quite a high cost card, so just be aware that if your opponent kills her, then she's going to be quite expensive to get back. So protect her. She does have ward, but there are other ways to protect her with hexproof, indestructible and stuff. So you would be benefiting a lot by getting those cards in the deck. Okay, next we have Wick the World Mine. Now this is one of our rat tribal legendary creatures in the set. Let's have a little look at the artwork. He's a rat, for starters. He's wearing a giant snail shell, and I mean a giant one. And we can see all around him, he has got little snail friends. He's holding another snail shell that seems to have some sort of magic come out of it. So he is definitely, shall we say, one with the snails. Almost like a little seer or something. I don't know what it is. And yeah, he's in some sort of cave and... that's it, really. He's just surrounded by a shitload of snails and he's casting some purple magic. So, what does Wick do? Two things. Whenever Wick or another rat you control enters, create a 1/1 black snail creature token if you don't control a snail. Otherwise, put a 1/1 counter on snail you control. This is just a mass. You might as well just say a mass snail. But, hey ho, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know if I am. But anyway, moving on. You can pay a blue, black, or a red to sacrifice a snail. Wick deals damage to each of the sacrificed to the sacrificed creature's power to each opponent. Then you draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Wick cares about rats entering the battlefield. Why? Because it's going to buff your snails. Why is it important to buff our snails? Because we can sack those snails to deal a shitload of damage, which is the red version, and draw lots of cards, which is where the blue mana comes from. This is what we are trying to do, and the sack element comes from the black. So that is why this spell is a blue, black, red cost. Don't know why Wick himself is purely of black mana. Maybe there's a flavor standpoint where he himself is nothing to do with these colors, but he harnesses the power of blue, red mana only to sack these spells. I don't really know. Share your thoughts. Let me know what you think. What's your theories on why Wick isn't just a blue, black, red card? Yeah, your strategy here is just to pump out as many rats as you can. Luckily, lots of rat cards allow you to produce lots of rats, so that's cool. But the main thing you're trying to do is sack these snails because you get to deal damage each opponent. So it's far more efficient to sack the snails than to attack with them because this damage is unavoidable, they can't be blocked, and because you're doing it 3 ways, you're going to do triple the damage essentially, and then you're going to draw cards after. So as a rule, sacking these snails are better. You can also continue to make snails as long as you don't have one, so it's within your best interest to always sack these snails after they get fairly big, so we can draw a fair few cards and burn quite a lot of our opponent's health. Wick looks really, really fun. I really like this card. I'd love to build a commander deck around Wick. Cards that are going to work well with Wick, basically rats, of course, snails, cards that are like changelings, so they can count as rats or snails, because then you can sack them with Wick's ability. And then any cards that care about you drawing cards is going to be synergistic with Wick, because you're probably going to be drawing a fair amount of cards as long as you have the snails available to do so. And then also burn spells, because it's going to help you burn your opponent quicker, so you don't have to rely completely on Wick. Our last card is Helga, Skittish Seer. Helga is a legendary creature, frog druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell of mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card, gain 1 life, and put a 1/1 counter on Helga. Then you can tap Helga to add X mana of any color, where X is Skittish Seer's power. Spend this mana only to cast creatures with mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana costs. From here, we can see that she is manipulating the water, making all these little bubbles come out, and we know from the story she can make like little pathways and stuff like that, but nothing too aggressive, more utility based magic. And she's got a little book in her hand. I don't know if this is the book where she writes, if I remember, she writes down her dreams, because she has little dreams where she sees things like the future and stuff like that. So I feel like that's what this book is for. Other than that, yeah, she's just in a read of some sort where you would hope to find the frog people. That's really it about Helga. There's really not much else to say about the art, so let's get into the creature. Right, frog druid. So this card is very flavorful, I should say, because in the story, Helga is not one of our kind of main hero-like characters. She's more of a supporting character, even though she is kind of the main character. Everything happens around her. She's not actually the one doing all the badass fighting and stuff. She's there as like a support, and that is represented very well in the card because you are not winning with Helga alone. Helga is a support commander. What she is doing is she is enabling your better, bigger, scarier creatures. So she does this by encouraging you to play creatures of mana value 4 greater, because she's going to generate you value if you do so in the form of card draw and gaining life and putting 1/1 counters on her. Now, that's not necessary to make her massive, because we know from looking at her second ability, she is essentially a big mana dork. So the idea is to get as many 1/1 counters on Helga so you can tap her for a good load of mana, so you can cheat out these big scary creatures as early as you can to start putting the pressure on your opponents early. Helga seems like a fun card if you want to play big, huge, scary green cards with the added white and blue element of gaining life and card draw. So, you know, she's not so simple. You can do some other stuff with her. Granted, you're going to be gaining a fair bit of life, so gain life care cards are going to be nice for her. Again, cards that care about draw power could be benefiting with Helga. Very interesting card. So cards that work well with Helga as well are going to be any cards that care about you casting creature spells. Typically, Helga's deck is going to be very creature based because she cares about you casting creatures. So anything that cares about you doing that or benefits or makes it easier for you to cast creatures is going to be very nice in Helga's deck. Helga is a 1/3 as well, so she's not the best in terms of stats, but bear in mind she is going to bet bigger as the game goes on. People are probably not going to be targeting Helga. She's not going to be a very big target, so she's probably just going to be able to just sit in the corner and mind her own business. And at free cost, she's not too expensive, so you're going to be able to get her out nice and early. That's all we've got to say about Helga. If you like these Bloomburrow videos and you want to keep seeing more Bloomburrow videos, then please hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any more of my content. I hope you enjoyed that breakdown of Bloomburrow's 5 most popular commanders. I want to know if you are thinking about building any of these commanders. Let me know which ones do you like and why. And if I've missed out anything in this video, then please let us know in the comments. Give us your tips. We want to know everything. Let's educate each other, okay? Let's inspire each other to make amazing, interesting commander decks for Bloomburrow. With Bloomburrow being already taken out the spotlight, you know, it's quite sad, and the way that we combat this is by continuing to build these really fun Bloomburrow commander decks and defy Bloomburrow being put into the background with Dustmorn. Let's keep Bloomburrow out there by continuing to build really fun Bloomburrow commander decks. Anyway, guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.